This is The Second Studio, hosted by the Architecture and Design Office fame. My name is David Lee, and with me is Marina Bordeaux-Renee. The two of us are architects, partners at the office, and of course, hosts of the show. And today our guest is Ekaterina Solomeina.
Ekaterina is the co-founder of the Future London Academy. They actually have a program for creative and design leaders with 15+ years of experience, and that's the only program that combines a rigorous MBA curriculum taught by C-level faculty, leadership, coaching, mentorship, and global network. And we talked to her about that program, which sounds absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so we, of course, we start off with learning about her background, how she got into all of this. And then starting, co-founding the Future London Academy, and it's just the whole conversation was interesting. Yeah. I think for her personal, stories, her experience working as a designer, and then founding the program, what the program's like, how it works, why they started it, how many people are accepted, the ins and outs of it. I think they are solving a much needed problem, as you guys will hear. And I think this is going to resonate very strongly with a lot of you. So I definitely recommend you check them out. I think it's... I keep thinking about the 30 spots, though. I'm like, that's going to
be... I'm tempted to apply myself.
Get on the wait list. And that's it. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. Sponsors.
This episode of The Second Studio is brought to you by BQE Core, the all-in-one firm management software built for architects. Designed by architects for architects, Core helps you track time effortlessly, manage projects seamlessly, and get paid faster so you can focus on design, not spreadsheets. With powerful automation and real-time insights, it's everything you need to run a smarter, more profitable firm. See how BQE Core can transform your practice by clicking the link in our show notes. Available with Revit version 2023.1 onward, Autodesk Insight is a next-generation carbon analysis tool that can help you make the leap to low-carbon design. With only a few clicks, Insight lets you analyze, understand, and track the embodied and operational carbon impact of your design choices. You can then visualize opportunities for energy efficiency and carbon mitigation with its flexible dashboards, helping you make more sustainable and informed decisions. Check out the Insight link in our show notes to find out more.
This is The Second Studio with myself, Marina, and our guest, Ekaterina. Here we go.
My path to creativity and design was probably a bit wiggly. I was supposed to be a mathematician and studied physics and math, but I've always been creative. I always loved drawing. I also loved being creative, but I was studying very heavy subjects. So I didn't know design was a profession that you could earn money with, and that's why my first degree was engineering. So I went to study C and C++ of software engineering. It was the old age when we were supposed to program printing machines. But very quickly I realized that this is probably not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I've always been doing kind of creative projects on the side. And then I learned there is such thing as multimedia design. That's what I suppose web and digital design was called back then. So I then studied graphic design, I studied multimedia design, was always doing projects on the side. But kind of I always had this duality of very system thinking, very analytical, very logical brain, and that kind of creative part, very much divergent, coming up with ideas, loving anything creative, anything visual. And that, I suppose, followed me through my career. When I graduated, I don't think I knew what exactly I would do as a designer or a creative. And luckily back then the industry was very broad. So people did not differentiate those fields as much as they do now. So I worked in advertising, shooting commercials. I worked in branding with some of really iconic people like Michael Wolff, the founder of Wolff Olins, like the father of the whole branding industry. I worked in strategic projects within the organizations where it was more kind of understanding different parts of what design can bring. I worked with Donatella Versace on like big strategic initiatives. So that was very magical to be on the inside of the company that you admire and that you obviously seen from the outside, and working with the person that is absolutely incredible and kind of creativity on the next level. So that kind of gave me a really big breadth and depth of different types of creativity. So I never thought that technically these were completely different career paths of, I suppose, advertising, branding, design, digital design. So now I suppose the industry is much more separated. So that kind of led me to this wonderful, successful career before I started my own company.
So back in the day when you were doing a lot of math, and I think you said physics courses,
Yeah.
were you really good in that department, or was it like it didn't fit and you weren't good at it?
I don't think I had a choice of not being good at it, if I'm very honest. There was failure was not an option. I actually liked math, and I like certainty in math. Math is always certain, and that's why I still like numbers. It gives me peace. You can always look at numbers and find something interesting in them. So that was easy. Physics, not so much. It wasn't easy, but I suppose we had to learn it. But I always knew I can be good at it, but I don't love it so much as my peers who could code like the whole night because it was fun. It was just something fun to do, to create some sort of crazy program or something that does something. And I knew that they eventually will be much better than me because they will be doing it in every spare minute of their life, while I will just do it when I'm paid for it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think it's interesting, this kind of, because I think it's very easy for people to make the assumption of it's like left brain, right brain, right? You have the analytical, logical, number based. It's their things are more certain on one side, and the other side is the creative. Do you generally perceive them as being very different things, or do you see a lot of like crossover between the two? Does one inform the other and help the other?
Great question. And I suppose in architecture, you see that combination of both, where you have to be very creative and analytical. And I believe that is the best combination for any, to be honest, job overall. You have situations where you need to come up with new ideas, where you have to solve problems creatively and non-linearly. And you have to have this ability not to be afraid of something that is so fuzzy and unknown and you don't know how to deal with this, and that's where creativity is incredible. On the other hand, you have to have this divergent thinking where you can analyze ideas, decide on things, and kind of come up with solutions. And I feel like the best people out there have some sort of combination of both, and I definitely enjoy having both, and kind of that translates into entrepreneurship as well. When you're a founder, you have to be very creative in many situations because there are problems that you've never solved before. On the other hand, you can't be just kind of relying on things being different every single day. You have to have some sort of structure. You need to, again, look at numbers and P&Ls and other things that you have to have a good system around. So yeah, it's a bit of both.
Yeah, I think you're totally right with the your observation about architects. It's a funny thing. Architects, we have like this weird reputation. It's either that people think that we are very good at math and that you have to be like excellent at math to be an architect, which I'm
Which
telling
I
you
wasn't.
is not the case. As a practicing architect, I can tell you that's not the case for most of us. And then there's either that or on a rare occasion, people think that we're very creative, but it's an odd kind of balancing of both sides that we have to do. And most architects, even the creative ones, are very, very logical people in their own thinking in the creative department too. Like everything has to have a reason. Every line we draw, every window shape, whatever we're doing, all has to have some kind of logic behind it. And I think that is, it's a weird. It is a weird pairing, and I think it's a little shocking, I think, sometimes for folks who don't know architects, when they learn about them, they're like, wow, you're really kind of like fixated on the logic of design, which is almost sometimes sounds like what do you call it, like a paradox of sorts.
I 100% agree. And I find that being curious about both parts is also what will take you forward as well. Even if naturally, you say you were more creative or just by upbringing, you happen to be more logical. There are so many circumstantial things that could have shaped your brain, and understanding which kind of area you can be curious about and learning more about it, I think that's a superpower.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to learn more, I want to learn more, but also hear more about the entrepreneurship aspect of all of this. But kind of sticking with the story briefly. So when you made the transition to taking design courses at school, it sounds like that happened at some point. Was there anything about those creative classes that was surprising to you? Was it like more conceptual than you thought it was going to be, more challenging, or was it just like a lot of fun to be more free and not be solving physics problems or whatever it was?
That is such a brilliant question. I've never thought about it because I felt like my entire life I've been deprived from creativity, and that what made me want it more. So I didn't take any creative classes. We didn't have any. So there wasn't, I was drawing for my own fun and pleasure while physics lecture was too boring. So I would draw on the back side of my exercise book. I would draw on other people's exercise books. They would give me actually their covers to draw something on them. So I would do these weird things that just to express my own creativity. I would hang out with skaters and graffiti artists because I felt like, again, that's the vibe that I was going for. We only had like the drawing classes. That's the only class we had, but it was very, I wouldn't say academic, but it was very straightforward. There was no creativity in it. So I wouldn't say that that was some sort of expression of creativity. So the first time I realized that creativity is some sort of a job or that's something I could do is when I actually started programming, because when you program, and that was the old time where we would like program websites and you could basically come up with some sort of design and make it appear on the screen. And that was so magical to me that you could write something with code and it would be all colorful and cool and flying around, and you could click on it and people see it and they love it. And obviously kind of a bit of social proof that you're doing something right always helps, that you show it to other people and they're like, how did you do it? So that was the first time I realized that that's something I actually could do. Plus, when we were 14 or 13 year old, we did our first website together with my sister, and back then like website was a big deal, like that was the only thing that existed. So we built it for some toy company and we were paid money for it, and that was just mind-blowing, like that we didn't know we would be paid. That's the hilarious part about it. Someone asked us to build a website and we just wanted to do it because it was so much fun. We loved doing it, so we did it, and then the guy gave us money and we were just so confused but also so happy. And then we're like, okay, that is actually a job that people could do. So that was fascinating.
That's pretty
funny. I love that. And then a bit more insight. So what it was like to work for the folks who did Michael Wolff, and then did you say Versace?
Yeah, I worked with Donatelle as well.
I mean, these are huge names. So what was it like working with these people and seeing them in action?
They're probably my biggest inspiration in life overall. So Michael Wolff now is 93, I think, years old. So when I worked with him, he was probably 70 or 80. So he was this big figure in design that everyone admires. So you hear about him, you saw his work, and for those of you who are not in the branding world, any logo you can name is probably been designed by Michael Wolff. Like, it's like that iconic. He's the British graphic designer, branding designer of the century. And he created this company called Wolff Orleans. That was, again, like this game changer in the world of design and branding. So just being around him and watching him work taught me more about what does it mean to be a creative? What does it mean to be a creative leader? What does it mean to come up with ideas than anything else? So we would be in a client meeting and I could see client disagreeing. Like, we would present something and the client would not like it, which is normal for any design. Everyone goes through that. Yeah. And seeing how he reacts to that, because obviously I was very young. The first reaction you want to have is being very defensive and like, no, you don't understand, this is what you need. But the way he would be always very calm and listen and tell a story. He was an incredible storyteller. Like, he would always start with some example or story that happened to him, and then it kind of leads to this solution. And by the time you kind of hear the story, you already sold the whole thing. You just love everything. And the way he would explain things also had this beauty in the language. He would use very visceral adjectives, things that have texture, smell, taste. Like, the way he would describe something will make you want it. And that was fascinating to watch. So he never needed to convince anyone or to defend or battle. He was just so empowering and inspiring and just tremendous, like, influential when he's in the room. That it was just magical to watch. And he would listen to everyone. And I was, again, very young. He had decades more experience than me, but he would always give me time. He would always empower me to do something and listen to my ideas and really take them seriously. So that was, I suppose, one way of doing leadership. And Donatella was a completely different story, because she's just fabulous. Like, she's just, and she was the first female leader that I've seen. And I've never actually,
Right.
I'm not the type of person who wants to separate, like, what does it feel like to be a woman? And, like, that's not the conversation I like having. But I never questioned that until I met her, and I realized that I actually never met a woman who is so influential, so powerful, so inspiring, runs a massive company, and also is admired. She is the creative brain that everyone in the company respects. She wasn't just a face to the company that kind of has to be there, but everyone knows the work is done a different way. No, she was the person that everyone would listen to, and she would come up with ideas that everyone just couldn't believe that that's like the idea. She would always be very enthusiastic, and she was always herself, which again is something that was very rare to see. Even the female leaders that I suppose I came across in my career, you still had to behave a lot like a man in many situations, because that was very tough environment in many companies. So you kind of become very masculine in many ways. But she was wearing high heels to work every single day. She was absolutely stunning. And I loved wearing high heels and dresses. And everyone thought I was crazy, because you can't be taken seriously when you dress up like that. And especially if you're a designer, you're supposed to wear trainers and jeans and be like cool and casual. And I did not believe in that. I like fashion, I like shoes, so I like to dress up. So seeing her being fabulous, being herself, being cheerful, being cool, and still be powerful, respected, and really, really good at what she does was really, really needed, I think, in my life.
That's phenomenal. It sounds like also you were and are a very, very observant person to kind of capture all these nuances and understand, the magic that was taking place in front of you, instead of just letting it, go by and not really notice it.
I think that's part of being creative. That's actually Michael Wolff's quote. He said that, like, number one muscle you need to train as a creative is curiosity. And being with him, maybe that's where I learned that skill. Being with him, you go on a walk. Anyway, you sit in a restaurant. He will notice 5 million things that you didn't. You will be sitting in a restaurant, you thought, we met for lunch, we're just having lunch. What is there to see? And he'll be like, that ceiling, that dog has this collar. Have you noticed? Or that waitress will come over and it's like, your earrings are so beautiful. He would constantly notice things everywhere. And he always said that every time he leaves his house, he sees the world for the first time, because he never seen this version of the world before. And I think it's so incredible to have this mindset of never being bored of what you see, even if you're taking the same route, even if you live in the same house, constantly be surprised by something you haven't seen, because yesterday was a different day. And he had this mentality, and he still has this mentality. When he's over 90, he cannot be bored. And I think that's how we should live our life, to be creative when at any age. We should be curious and we should notice things.
Yeah, I
It
love it.
almost sounds like, in a way, you kind of have to be an optimistic person
Yeah,
to be
I was just
creative,
thinking the
right?
same.
Because if you're not, then what's the drive, right? Like, I think like it's beautiful to say like you're seeing the world, differently every day, and I think that's a very optimistic way to look at it, rather than being like, okay, I'm just going to do the same thing as I did yesterday. And if you're in that mindset, like, how could you ever create anything, right?
Yeah, you're right.
It does remind me on a lesser scale or degree. I had a family friend years ago had asked me and a few of my architecture colleagues, like, well, what is it like to be an architect when you're out and around? At that time, we were living in New York City. Like, what is it like to be an architect and live in New York City? And I'm like, well, I think one of the things that happens for a lot of architects is that once you go through the training, which tends to be one of the most transformative periods for architects. Like at some point, your eyes just like open up and your perspective becomes very wide. And suddenly you're seeing, I always say it's sort of like seeing the Matrix, which is a bit of an extreme example, but it's the best one I can think of. So like when you step outside, you're just like seeing all this stuff. And I think the architect is very aware of all these bits and pieces, that all of the flaws, first and foremost, that exist in the built environment, like that should not be aligned with that thing, or that reveal should not be there. But you're just like constantly in tune with the environment. And I actually found that architects and designers are good people to travel with, because they're just like fascinated with everything. And in the case of a lot of architects, fascinated with culture. It's not just about buildings. Like they want to see how people live in the city. And it's fun to be around those folks if you're like-minded, as opposed to those who are, maybe just more interested in some kind of shallow entertainment, aspect of a trip or a vacation, let's say. So I think there's something there. But the storytelling aspect of what you described is something I've thought about. Like I've heard many times, right, that storytelling is the best way to convey an idea and the best way to, quote, convince someone of something. But man, that's a really difficult. It's an art to do that, right? It's not the easiest thing for everybody, and it's a whole.
But I don't know if that's
set of
something
expertise.
you can learn and master, or if you kind of have to naturally be gifted with that.
Well, that's a great question for you. do you think that can be taught, the art of storytelling?
Oh, I love the question in general, what can be taught and what is in someone's brain. And I'm sure you know about the book from Carol Dweck called Mindset, that talks about growth mindset and fixed mindset. Have you read the book?
No.
You have something to discover in your life. This is a book that changed my life, seriously, because going back to the physics and math and when failure is not an option, the whole premise of the book, that there are two types of people: those who have growth mindset, who essentially feel like anything is learnable, everything is teachable, you can learn something, and those who have fixed mindset. So they think that whatever you're given, that's what you have to deal with. Now, it's actually shows up in much more subtle way than kind of this black and white. So for example, if you say, I'm not good at math, or I'm not really that sporty, or I'm always late, that's very much a fixed mindset. You kind of define that, that's who you are and you can't change it. And the growth mindset, people believe that if you practice something enough, you can get better at it. The problem is we are taught fixed mindset since we are kids, and not even from a bad place. Even our parents or teachers, when they want to praise us, they would say, your drawing is so amazing, you're a real artist. Or like, I don't know, you really good at math, you should be whatever, an astronaut, like whatever. They define something as a fixed thing, while if any parents listening and they want to kind of cultivate this growth mindset, what you should say is, oh, you did really well on this math test, you must have prepared a lot, or you well done for winning this competition, you must have practiced a lot, and this drawing is so great that you're, I don't know, doing it in your free time and learning these skills, whatever. So the whole idea is that when we don't perform well on this math test or competition, we don't automatically think the opposite. I'm not good at math, I'm not good at sports because I did not win. We actually think, I did not practice enough. I should practice more. I should do more of this. And the truth is, first of all, the research shows that people with growth mindset achieve more in life, period. Everything. Work, business, career, you just achieve more in life. So it kind of, it it makes sense to have growth mindset. There is no downside.
Right. Yeah.
But it's hard. And we can have growth mindsets in certain areas, but then in other areas we can have fixed mindset. So it's trickier than that. But going back to your original question, can things be taught? Absolutely. Anything that you want to improve, if you practice it enough, you will improve it. And actually, I went on this journey of discovering, when you study at school, there are some kids in your class that are very good at something, let's say math, in my case. And I actually caught up with my friend who was really, really good at math. The entire school, she's now top engineer she was at Google, now she's some other big tech company in Silicon Valley. She's doing great things. And I had a lunch with her and I'm like, how were you so good at math? Can you tell me, how did it happen that you were so much better? And she was saying, oh, yeah, when I come home, I would just practice all the, I couldn't stop. I liked it so much. I would do just exercise for fun. Literally, she would come from school and does the entire book of something on math. So it wasn't really magic. She was just practicing much more than what we see, because we see people only in class or wherever we see them, and we assume that everything we learned, that's what everyone got. But we don't know when people go home. Maybe their parents are mathematicians and they force them to do this. Maybe they genuinely love it so much, they do it in their free time. And that's where this imbalance comes. But yeah, everything is practicable if you want to get better at business skills, and we'll go back to entrepreneurship and everything else that creatives and designers never taught how to do until you start running your own business. And then you're like, okay, now I need to figure out that. And turns out you can learn things. You can learn leadership, you can learn business, you can learn finance, you can learn sales, you can learn any skill that you historically haven't been good at. But guess what? If you practice it, if you have good teachers, you'll get better at it.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
I think also there's a few thoughts that come to mind. One is that I agree. It's sometimes easy from the outside to assume that someone who is very good in this department or has a lot of success, that it had happened overnight. This is another way of kind of thinking about it. And oftentimes if you have a conversation with that individual, they're like, no, this did not happen overnight. You think it did. You think I'm just talented. But this took a lot of years of grinding when no one was paying attention and no one knew, but they were doing it anyway. I think the other interesting thought, which totally escaped my mind just now, what was I going to say?
Don't look at me. I'm not in your head.
Well, come on. What was it? You know me. What was I going to say? But on the subject of entrepreneurship, I like the observation you've made of most creatives and designers and architects and all these people, right? We maybe we go to school, we get training in these departments, we practice them, we love this part of it, and a lot of us at some point realize, I want to have my own business, my own shop, my own studio, my own whatever, for a variety of reasons. And then you're totally correct that 99% of the time that happens, and then a week or two later or a month later, whatever it is, maybe sometimes years, they realize, oh, there is a whole universe through this door that I've walked, this whole universe of things that I need to excel at if I'm going to be serious about having a successful business, that is new and different and really is not directly, what I learned in school of how to draw this or how to sculpt that or how to, sketch this or that thing. And it is it's a weird place to be in. It could be perceived as daunting, I think. Is this partly why the Future London Academy was founded?
Yes, you nailed it. I feel like there are so many things that we're never taught as creatives and as designers. And I suppose the origin story that after this fabulous career that I had across multiple creative fields, I found myself a bit stuck that I was teaching at universities. I was going to very good universities to teach students about what I know. But I was thinking, where do I learn new things? I still have decades of my career ahead of me. How do I progress and how do I learn things? And there is no place. There is I suppose the traditional business people have their MBAs. If you work at McKinsey's of the world, then you can get an MBA and progress in your career. But traditional MBAs do not serve the creative industry because creative industry functions in a different way. We need also completely other set of skills on top of everything else that MBA teaches to actually be able to not just run existing business, but grow it and grow it to the next level and understand how the world functions. And first, we started doing lots of short courses as Future London Academy, and we had a lot of interest from across the world. Turns out I wasn't alone with my need for learning. Then everyone who attended our short courses started coming to us to do custom programs for companies. So we did massive training and transformation programs for companies like Mars, the chocolate company, or TikTok, and because there was this need and there was nowhere to learn it. The people knew that there is this new set of skills that is needed for companies of the future to succeed, but no one knew what the set of skills is and also where to learn them and who should teach them. I obviously collected a lot of great connections throughout my career. So all the teachers were the industry experts that I personally admire and wanted to learn from, whether it is founders of incredible companies and agencies that scale to 100, 500,000 people, or whether they were chief design officers or creative directors who, again, nailed their career and knew something that I didn't. And then one thing that we keep hearing was exactly what you said, that there is this extra set of skills that is needed when you reach this certain point in your career, which is the kind of roughly 15 plus years. You kind of nailed your craft, you succeeded within your creative field, whether it's architecture, branding, any sort of design. But then you realize that is not enough, and you feel like you hit the ceiling. Just knowing more design skills, not going to take you anywhere further. Yeah. But then you don't know what you don't know. It's easy to learn something is like, I need a new software. Let me learn that. I'll go on a leadership course. I learn leadership. But then there is this kind of the whole unknown field of what do I even need to learn to get to this next level, whether it is become chief design officer or whether it is to scale my company. Let's say I've been running my company for 10 years, but I want to scale it to the next level. Why can't I? I already read every single book. I already been to every single talk about design.
Right.
What do I not know that stops me from scaling company to the next level? And that was the question that I had in my mind, and I didn't have an answer. So I did what was any designer would do. I did a massive research. So I went and spoke to the top CEOs, CFOs, founders, understanding how did they do what they did, the most successful people in the industry. What did they need to learn? Where they learned and how they learned it. I talked to the top academic institutions, understanding what MBAs are and what do they teach, what is actually helpful or not. And if you talk to academics, it's actually hilarious. They will be very honest with you which subjects they think they shouldn't be there at all, but they have to teach it because that's the system, you get your qualifications, whatever. But they all agree that if they could stop teaching them, they would remove them from curriculum. So it was very helpful to kind of understand what this more holistic approach to design leadership, scale, and just next level career looks like. And there was no really place that would combine all of that in kind of one holistic way. I obviously love the idea of Bauhaus, and whenever I read stories, you can see I have Bauhaus book. I have many books on Bauhaus. I'm slightly obsessed with it. So I always liked it as a place of power and energy, because it was there is a reason why it became such a transformational place, even though it existed for only a few years, because it attracted the best out of the best teachers, whether it's Kandinsky, Mahalanaj, Schlemmer. They were all famous professional artists. They were practitioners who were at the top of their game at that point. They had their studios there, they were working there, and they were teaching how they're doing what they do. So one is, I realized to create this magic sauce, you need the best out of the best people to actually teach how they do things, not how it can be done in theory, which a lot of universities do. And then the second part about Bauhaus, they're like, as we all remember, they're a very holistic curriculum where they decided that you need to kind of think of design as a profession in a different way, because it was the time where it was actually very scary for designers. It was Industrial Revolution. The craftsmanship was going away, and a lot of creatives, designers were scared what the profession would look like when these machines are taking over, and now you can produce thousands of plastic chairs a second, not craft one for a year. What will happen? Will there be any place for designers and creatives if now everything is done by machines? Kind of reminds a little bit, obviously, of what we're going through now.
Yeah, it sounds very similar.
And that's the beauty of it. They created a curriculum. They didn't just look at just one narrow field of architecture or product design or something small. They had very holistic curriculum. They actually went in spirituality as well. Eton was very well known for teaching like some weird things that people like, is it even a thing to be taught? Anyway, they created this ecosystem where people could find the new approach to design and creativity and actually redefine the entire industry. And that's why the graduates from Bauhaus built some of the iconic things and what became so prominent, because they were completely rethinking what the industry is and could look like in the future. So I wanted to make sure that the curriculum that we have kind of reflects that future-focused approach, preparing not for the industry right now, but what's coming next. And we started way before AI was a thing, but we actually were teaching AI, funnily enough, from the beginning. And back then it was called machine learning and algorithms and all of that. But we kind of knew that wave is coming. And designers and creatives need to understand new technologies, whatever this new technology is, and some will fade away, some will come back. But designers need to be aware of very holistic kind of variety of subjects. So basically, one is the cool people that need to be there. One is the future-focused curriculum that you need to create to make sure. But also, the last part that I loved about Bauhaus is they knew how to party. And I'm sure you've heard and seen pictures of their famous Bauhaus parties, because they had themes like planets or shapes or squares, and I forgot. They had hilarious themes, and they all had to dress up and kind of make their costumes, and the faculty would be like, all these famous people would party with them. And I feel like that is an important part of creativity, of having these non-linear engagements where you're not just kind of focused on learning one thing. You actually don't know why you're doing what you're doing. It's a bit kind of chaotic. But in that chaos, I'm sure the best conversations they had, the best relationships were built from these random interactions and these things that sparked random creativity and new ideas and things that essentially redefine who they are and what they do. So we wanted to make sure that element of some spontaneous, we call it engineered serendipity. So something that sparked this extra creativity. And again, in the program, we create many moments. We do have parties, and they're very much Met Gala style. There is a theme, and it's all sorts of great costumes come out of that. But also, we do have bread making classes for them and archery classes. So again, it's about finding these new ways for our brain to rewire while we are doing something else with a cohort of incredibly ambitious people who are studying with you, who all have these big visions and ideas, but come from different places and backgrounds. So yeah, Bauhaus was a big inspiration in what we envisioned for the company. And yeah, when we launched it, it was actually very interesting to see that in the first year, I think we got 2,000 or 3,000 applications for 30 spots, because that is a need in the industry. The people want to understand the business, the finance, all the traditional MBA subjects, as well as what the future looks like, as well as how to be a leader and how to run a team and how to scale a company and how to get investment, and all these topics they're never taught. They're very needed in the creative industry, but no one created it specifically for creative industry. So you are studying with other creatives and designers and architects and people who work in a variety of creative fields, and you're learning from the best in the industry. So it kind of was magical to see it all happening. It was a lot of hard work, but when you release it, it's actually very satisfying to see.
I have a lot of questions and things to say. The first thing is that you yourself are a phenomenal storyteller. That's for sure the case. Whether that was a natural talent or a skill, trained
Definitely
over the
learned.
years,
Everything is a growth.
Yeah.
And now a little break for our show sponsors. Are you tired of juggling multiple pieces of software and struggling with spreadsheets that aren't made for the realities of design and architecture in 2023? Built by and for designers and architects, Programma's all-in-one suite of tools has everything modern studios need for every stage of a project. Mood boards, the world's best specification tools, procurement tracking, project management, and more. All smartly integrated, easily shareable, and always up-to-date, reducing time-consuming double handling and costly errors. Share your work in various formats, from PDF to client-friendly, up-to-date online dashboards. Join the ranks of leading studios using Programma today. Click the Programma link in our show notes to start for free. This episode is brought to you by Chaos. They make award-winning design and visualization tools, and they're really pushing the boundaries with AI. Now, AI is shaking up the architecture and design world, and Chaos is taking a responsible approach. Their tools are built to help architects, designers, and visualization specialists to work faster and explore more ideas without replacing creativity. Basically, Chaos wants AI to make your imagination stronger, not take over. So you get to design with more freedom, create stunning visuals, and stay in control of your work. If you want to see what that looks like, tap the Chaos link in our show notes.
Dear architects, design leaders, and founders redefining the industry, if you want to shape not only buildings, but the business behind them, this is your moment. Future London Academy's Executive MBA takes you inside the boardrooms of Pentagram, Uber, Zaha Hadid Architects, and Google, where you'll master finance, strategy, and operations from the people who already excel at them. Study along peers transforming the industry worldwide, and do it all in just 9 intensive weeks over 1 year between London and California. The program is award-winning, transformative, and crafted for design and architecture leaders with 15 or more years of experience. If you're ready to grow your impact, apply now by tapping the Future London Academy link in our show notes. Going back at the very beginning when you said that you kind of started this journey by, it sounded like R&D in terms of talking to leadership in the professional setting and the academic setting. I would imagine it takes an immense amount of time. How long did you do that for?
Ooh, great question. It did take a very long time. It was a few years, I would say. There was definitely a few years of very much doing it on the back end, because at that point, so Future London Academy started 13 years ago now. So we've been running a variety of courses and programs that we just felt like there needs to be something bigger and more holistic. So while we were running all the other courses, kind of on my back end, I was trying to understand what is this thing that actually can make a bigger difference in the industry. Because I also believe in the power of design and creativity. So I knew that designers and creatives can do more if only they have these other skills. So I was doing it for a few years, more of a as a side thing. But then when we started putting together advisory board and all the academics, I think that was another few years of actually sitting down and doing interviews every day and writing all sorts of notes and insight, interviewing people who went through MBAs, understanding what they've learned, what they used, what they didn't use. And yeah, it was a fascinating journey. And then also talking about chief design officers. Like, I remember whenever I mentioned, like, this is what we're building, this is what we're kind of thinking of building. And they were so, like, the feedback was so incredibly positive. Like, I wish this existed. I wish when I was trying to become a chief design officer, or before I was going through this painful journey of scaling the company, I wish someone just gave me the recipe rather than me struggling and doing all the mistakes and learning from my own pains rather than from like someone who done it many times.
Yeah. It's funny. We've had a couple of friends or colleagues and people we know who, obviously all of our friends are architects, right? They went to architecture school, and at some point in their career they decided to get an MBA because they realized, again, there's this other universe of information. And I don't know much about what an MBA entails and what folks learn, but I do know anecdotally that a handful of those people acquire that knowledge. They found it very interesting, but they're left not really knowing what to do with it afterwards.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit, of course, like for them as an individual, what's their path, right? That's a big part of it. But also, I've always been curious. Like, I hear very often from firm owners, like, it would have been useful for me to go and get a master's degree or a business degree whilst also doing architecture in school to kind of like learn both sides of it. But I just purely, my imagination is like, but I would assume that there's a pretty big gap between a business degree and then just taking that and applying it to the field of architecture or design. I think that's a pretty big bridge to cross. And then if you're on your own, you'd have to figure out what that looks like. And I think that's what you're kind of highlighting too, is what you guys offer is that bridge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. And we actually had a few people who'd done MBAs and then went to study on our program. And they basically said that everything you learn on a traditional MBA is Googleable. I mean, it was before AI, now it would be AIable. Because you are taught theory, like at any traditional MBA, you are given case studies from 20 years old. You are given frameworks from the books that you could read. Like, it's all out there. It's all Googleable. You can go on like any business website and download these things. It's nothing new. But you're right. The thing that is missing is how does it apply to real life? How do you use these things to grow your business or to run your team or to hire people? And that's why everyone who goes through our program says that it is actually incredible to see real CEOs and real CFOs teaching you how they look at P&L or how they look at metrics or what numbers are actually important and which ones are not, what their day-to-day life looks like, how do they make decisions and how they frame everything they work to make sure they prepare for growth or prepare for different seasons in the company as well. And that knowledge can't be found anywhere because these people are not really interested in sharing or writing blogs about it or books about it. They don't have time. No.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. I mean, there's so much stuff you said that I think was fascinating. One of them was like when you were teaching, you had this question at some point of like, well, how do I keep learning? And I've actually wondered that myself about young professionals who go into teaching. Like, it's pretty common for young architects to have to, in quotes, have an office, even though it's not really existing, and then also teach part-time. And I've always wondered, like, but if you start your teaching career at the age of, I don't know, 30 or 20, whatever age it is, and you do that, I mean, you can do research on your own, but...
How do you stay connected and relevant, right, in the conversation?
You're kind of like missing out on a lot of life, I feel like. But I feel like we've teased the audience. So give us a rundown or description of like what the program is like what happens, how long is it for, who is it for, all this kind of like stuff. So listeners have some sense of context, let's say.
Sure. So basically when in this research phase of trying to understand what would actually work for people, what would make a difference, because what's the point of creating something that doesn't make an impact? So we wanted something that would generally help people, whether it is scale companies, whether it is get to this next level of promotion or becoming a partner in the firm, so whatever this is. And also you already highlighted, these people don't have time. So how do you create a program that can be done alongside your very demanding career or the business that you're running? So the way we structured it is across 1 year, but in these 2-week bursts. So essentially, there are 2 weeks. You start in July for 2 weeks. Then you have another immersive 2 weeks in October. So it's in person in London. Like, again, we love London for many reasons of inspiration. So 2 weeks in July in London, 2 weeks in October in London. Then we also have 1 week in California in January. And then 2 weeks in March in London and 2 weeks in June in London. So essentially it's 9 weeks across 1 year, but split into these very intensive 5 modules. And we wanted this duality of UK versus US because the industry works in such a different way in Europe versus how it works in the US. And it's important to understand both, especially if you want to have a global business. But I think every business is global now by default because you will work with, whether it is people who are from different countries or clients will be from different countries. So it was important for us to have this duality. That's why one of the modules is in Silicon Valley. So that's where the one in January, kind of halfway through the program, we go with a cohort, and it's all about like investment and startups and understanding the fast growth of the tech companies that we all hear about. What do they know that we all don't? How to grow that fast, and if you ever decide to raise money or you will be acquired as a company, what to prepare for. And it doesn't mean that everyone actually comes out of that module thinking that they want to raise money. A lot of them actually say, now that I know what it means, I don't want it. And I don't want to, I never want an investor in my life.
Not as easy as it sounds.
No, it's easy. But it's important to know, because otherwise you have to learn from your own mistakes. So basically we crafted this curriculum in this across 1 year, all in person, to make sure that you can combine it with your demanding job. But also it's very important for us to make sure everyone is in the same room at the same time. So we have people flying from all around the world. I think current cohort has 15 or more different nationalities. So anywhere from US, Canada, Australia, Singapore, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Belgium, UK. So it is really, really broad. And there is such a magical feeling of having these 30 super high performing, super successful, super experienced individuals who come from different countries, from different creative fields, anywhere from architecture, from branding, advertising, fashion, digital tech. So they all have this creative mindset. They all come from some sort of creative or design field, but they're now at this leadership level with 15, 20 years of experience, where just doing good design is not enough. So they need to understand the business, the finance, the growth, all the other aspects. So yeah, essentially it was crafted for these specific individuals, and we very kind of industry agnostic. We usually have like an equal split across industries, and we try to curate this environment to make sure that you can meet someone from a different field. As you said, all your friends are architects. We actually have, we hear that a lot, that industries get in their own bubble. And even if you network with your own peers, you literally never cross that line of like, like if you're an architect, meeting people from branding who are equally successful and doing great things, but they're from a different industry, but it's also a creative industry, so it shouldn't be that different. So it is magical to see how they solve the problems, because some problems have been solved in one industry and can be really well translated to another one, but also sharing the pains. I think the one thing that we keep hearing is just having cohort of 30 people who all kind of come from different places, but really understand you. Like really, you don't need to explain yourself to them. When you share the pain with clients, or like, how to win your business or anything, they feel you. They know what it is. Yes, they might have been running architecture practice and not a branding studio, but the pains are very similar, and or revenue or cash flow, or if they work in organizations, then how to get promoted, how to work with clients, how to make sure the senior leadership team actually sees the value that you bring, not just sees you as kind of this separate design department that does nice things, but actually sees the business value that you bring to the company. And it's fascinating to see how much collaboration comes out of it, how much people become each other's clients, people hire each other. We had actually... In the last cohort that just graduated, we had someone who was running a construction company in Dubai. And so he's a founder of his own company. And he hired one of the cohort members as chief design officer. So that person was a principal at 8 Inc., one of the, I suppose, top architecture practices. And so he hired him as chief design officer. So now they do like incredible projects in Dubai, and they're collaborating with another cohort member who is from Singapore, who is this incredible lighting designer, who has her own agency, and obviously they have lots of clients who need her services. So it's fascinating how these collaborations naturally, very organically evolve from the cohort just being stuck in the same room for a year. Like that's what it is. You are with these people, you start trusting people much more than anywhere, because I don't think as adults we have those situations where we can actually really deeply connect with other people on like, not on the surface level, on something really, really deep, and really trust them with things that are happening in your life that you probably wouldn't trust, actually, maybe anyone. because your family might not understand, and your colleagues, you probably won't share everything that's going on in your company.
Stop talking to me about work, please.
Yeah.
I think that's
That
totally
sounds-
true.
yeah.
I mean,
That sounds really cool.
It
That sounds
does.
really cool. So there is only 30 spots. So how does I'm sure after this episode, you're going to have a lot of,
I hope so.
interest into the program. How do you guys go about selecting the 30 members each year?
It's the hardest but most fun part. We have kind of multi-stage process, so everyone can apply on a website and kind of get all the information. Then they need to write a small essay of why they feel like they're a good candidate. We kind of screen those essays to understand kind of what intentions people have. And then we have a video interview with people where I suppose there are kind of few things overall through this process we're trying to assess. One is the right level of seniority, because again, the whole magic of this is that you are surrounded by your peers. And I'm sure you heard from your friends who done MBAs, the biggest problem with MBAs, you will be with very junior people. So you not necessarily will get like a peer cohort. So it's important for us to make sure that you will be in a room with same seniority, or even someone maybe ahead, 5 years ahead of you, so you can have this network of people. So we assess seniority, and we require minimum 15 years of experience, but we have people who come with 20, 25 years experience as well.
Wow.
We also assess, obviously, that kind of the questions that people arrived to in their career, because you can have 30 years of experience, but it will be kind of the same year repeated 30 times. So you need to... Age doesn't necessarily constitute that you have these problems, like you say, whether it is about business expansion, whether it is how can I create more value with my work, what do I leave behind me, like existential questions that again everyone in our cohort has, like, okay, I've done a lot of great award-winning work, but so what is the next thing I can bring to the world? And like, again, business questions, more like vision questions. Who am I? What makes me different as an architect, or as a creative director, or as a head of design? What do I bring to this world truly as a creative, as a person on this planet? What am I here for? So, and also, like, what do they want to do with this knowledge? That they want to do something really good, because everyone on the program gets connected to some of the most influential people in the industry, and obviously the knowledge they get from top CEOs. So they become very, very powerful in what they can do. So we want to make sure that they want to do something good in this world. And part of the curriculum is actually understanding kind of the impact of your work beyond not just kind of sustainability and everything else, but true impact of the work that you have. And we want to make sure that everyone who goes through the program, same as what Bauhaus did, creates this new movement on types of creative and design leaders who actually wants to change the world for the better. This is our secret plan that we will teach people business skills, we'll teach people leadership skills so they can become more influential within their companies or grow their agencies or whatever they're doing. That literally gives you more money. So you go through the program, you earn more money. Whether it is through promotion, you double the revenue of your company, whatever that is, you will earn more money. Now, the question is, what do you do next? Now that you have this more influence, you have this more powerful company, we want people who actually will do something good with this power, with this influence, with this money, with everything they bring into the world, because we can only take 30 people. So they really, really need to spread this seeds of goodness in the world. And now that we have more and more cohorts graduating and we see that slowly having impact, that's actually fascinating to see, whether it is like literally driving sustainability. They get promoted to HQ. So we have someone who worked with a big fashion label, and they got promoted to HQ. So essentially they were battling with this kind of never-ending, is design worth it? And then now they understand the leadership, the business, they learned all the language. So they've been promoted to a leadership position, moved to HQ, and now they're driving sustainability. So they use this power. They always wanted to drive sustainability, but when you have no influence and no power in the company, you can shout as much as you want about all great initiatives that you want to do, but no one will listen. But if you are at this senior position where you can actually influence things and the strategy of the business and what the business does next and how it does it, then that's super powerful. So now she's doing incredible things in a massive company. And we all, as a society, will benefit from decisions that she is making. And we have many stories like that where not just people become more powerful and get promoted to partner, to chief design officer, to just getting a new job in a bigger company or growing their company, but then they start doing really, really good things with that.
Wow, you guys are really seeing the big picture. Is there, on average, for each year there's 30 participants, are roughly half people who are working at an office and the other half are people who have their own practice? Or is there like a balance you try and strike?
Good question. So we try to, again, part of the selection process is to make sure that we have a good mix, and mix of, as I said, industries, personalities, geographies, but also size of businesses. So we have, like in the cohorts, we have like creative director from Apple and head of content from Netflix, or like architects from big architectural firms. But also we have founders of 3-person company, a founder of, I think, 10, 20-person company, but also founders of 100-person companies. So we have kind of variety of sizes of business people work in and sizes of business people run. And that creates this nice environment where you can always find someone in the cohort that is literally having exactly the same experience as you, but also you can find someone who is kind of maybe in a slightly different environment, maybe has a bigger company or maybe deals with different challenges, so you can learn from them.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I get a ton of questions. One of them is more from your side, from a like teaching and leadership perspective. Is it, how do I phrase this question? How much of the success of the program comes from the more prescribed learning objectives and exercises that you guys have during the program? And how much of it comes directly from more like just the group dynamics, just this body of people being together, shoulder to shoulder, for a few weeks, 9 weeks or over the year. Like I ask that question also from, I'm sometimes in that position of like, how do you orchestrate the environment so it's productive? And sometimes it requires being very, very hands off, and other times it requires being very hands on. So yeah, what is that like?
I suppose that's where the theme of my brain being very logical and systematic versus creative kind of reemerges, because that's literally the battle that I always have in my head. And the way we design the program is to have really rigorous structure of learning, of subjects, of frameworks people learn, because people come still for skills and learning. They need these skills. It's not enough just to have fun for a year. You're not going to grow that way.
Bowling for 9 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, there is value in that as well, but I suppose we're still a learning program. So we take learning very seriously to make sure that every minute that people spend on the program is valuable. So every session is designed with the actual CEOs and CFOs, and they do deliver those sessions. But where we come in, we help them design the actual learning experience so it's valuable and practical, and the frameworks can be applied, because they have 30 plus years of experience that needs to be combined, let's say, in half-day session on P&L. Like, what do you pick out of all of that? And we help to make sure that the learning is very practical, it's very interactive. You will be solving case studies, you will be looking at frameworks, you will be working in groups, you work individually. So it's not just sitting down and listening, it's really, really well curated and orchestrated, essentially, experience that people go through. And as with any experience, you can design it in a very precise way to make sure that it happens. Essentially, the learning process happens, the transformation happens. So we put a lot of effort into real structural part of learning to make sure it's very practical. It's very relevant to different industries as well, to make sure, again, that whether you're an architect or you work in fashion or branding, you can be applied to your size of a company, your type of business, your type of the industry. So it is very rigorous. But we also have these kind of areas where, like, for example, each week, midweek, we take people behind the scenes of some of the coolest companies. So we just finished one of the modules. We went to Zaha Hadid Architects. So the associate director was sharing how she leads design teams and all the behind the scenes things that happen in her life, and how she solves problems and makes decisions and works with construction and works with clients, and how did she figure out how to, again, win projects and do things. But also we are in their office and we are seeing the machines that they use for prototyping, the areas where they work, how they work. And it kind of adds this other layer that is non-linear as well, because first of all, you retain information better when you change the environment, so you can't sit in the classroom the entire time and actually remember everything. But also we learn, as creatives and as designers, we notice so many things that we maybe even not consciously write down, but we kind of absorb them and form our way of doing things based on that. So a lot of that comes from observing these cool leaders in their natural environment and seeing behind the scenes. So there is a balance of both, where we have really rigorous curriculum that teaches you very fundamental things that you need to learn about how to scale business, how to have a hiring strategy, how to create culture in the team, conflict resolutions. Our curriculum literally covers everything from business to team management to pricing, growth, marketing, sales, as well as geopolitics, sustainability, ethics, literally every single subject you need to learn, but also having these opportunities where everyone can kind of walk around or, again, do. We have acting classes for people. So, again, you do acting class together with your cohort and you digest the information you learned the day before, but also you kind of unlock something else in your brain that maybe wasn't there before.
It's so cool.
That sounds really
And so
nice.
do you guys have, I guess, repeat teachers or guests? I don't know what their title would be. Teachers, guest lecturers,
it's our
guest,
faculty,
whatever?
So our
faculty.
faculty stays the same 80%. So every year, so we have long-term relationships with them, and they invested as much in everyone's growth as we are, and that's another thing that I always found difficult with universities, that they have no skin in the game. They don't really care if you succeed or not afterwards.
Yeah, it's like they have tenure as well. I mean, they're cruising.
Yeah, well, our faculty generally uses this as an opportunity, on one hand, to learn from everyone in the room, because they understand, yes, they are 20 years ahead, but there is so much that kind of the new blood is doing in the view. So they love learning from everyone, but also they hire people. They become board advisors. They become they build relationships with the cohort. So for them, it's also opportunity to have their global network of people they want to be connected with and learn from. So 80% of teachers stay the same, and 20% we change every year. So based on, we again have feedback every year. We look through every single piece of curriculum. Is it still relevant? Did the industry change? What's needed? And within each session, we change content, but also, some of the things, technology evolved so much. So what we were teaching on technology throughout the past 5 years changed dramatically. So that 20% allows us to change curriculum, but also that means technically every 5 years, if you change 20%, then every 5 years there will be a new program. Obviously, it's not the same or the different 20% that we change, because some things are fundamental, but it still allows that growth.
So you've been running the program for 13 years, and there is, I'm just thinking about those 30 spots. Is there any I don't know, goal or wanting to grow the program to be more than 30? Or did you find that over the years 30 is kind of like the magic number to retain the quality of what you guys are providing?
Wait, I'll also interject. Is it 30 people per year, or do you have multiple sessions, sessions of 30? Does that make sense?
Great question. Yeah, so we currently only have one per year, and the whole goal was always to make it very special and curated, and make sure that we really put effort into selecting the best people to be together so they make the most impact. We obviously run other courses and programs as Future London Academy. They're a bit broader. They're kind of anyone can join. We have online courses that again teach maybe just the fundamentals of business or leadership, and there are multiple opportunities for people to learn from Future London Academy. But this one, we wanted it to be something very special, and what we've seen throughout the years, that magic of 30 people is something that creates on one hand these very tight connections. They refer to each other as family. They really, really bond. They start sharing Airbnbs together. Like when we go to California, they all rented Airbnbs in one complex. So they all had like dinner parties and like, it was hilarious. They literally live like one big family. That number allows everyone to really, really get close connections. But on the other hand, it kind of gives you the breadth of people from across the world. So yeah, no plans for now to change anything about that. Bauhaus was also quite curated, if we refer back to that. But maybe other programs that we launch, there will be more for everyone to give access to learning.
Could you guys do multiple batches though in a year?
We probably could, but it's with anything that at that kind of quality level, you want to make sure you maintain the highest quality possible, because people refer to us as like this very curated luxury experience that you have on the program. And we feel like this right now, the level of attention we have for every single detail, it is very much crafted for this cohort. So we don't want that to go away. So no, we don't want it to have more of it. We would rather these people who graduate, they go and teach all this knowledge that they've got to other people. And they do it within their communities, within their teams. They go back and they present everything they learned to their company. So we always feel like the impact of the program is much further than 30 people, but we would rather pick 30 people who will be very influential and can make an impact and invest a lot of our time and care in them, rather than kind of making it a mass thing that, I mean, is kind of for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. A couple questions. The first, have you ever had anybody attend the program and then end up together romantically, get married, have kids? I feel like that's the ultimate test of bonding.
That's a ultimate success. Yeah.
Great question. Definitely very
Not
deep
to your
friendships.
knowledge?
Very deep friendships. Not to my knowledge. I don't know everything about everyone's personal life, so who knows? But definitely lots of professional relationships and deep friendships. Like, it's actually so, I don't know, special to see when, I don't know, two people really care about each other, like on such a deep level. We always say like there are so many hugs and like just things that, I don't know, they kind of, we miss them in this world where we're behind the screens and on Zooms and suddenly seeing these people so tight together and so tactile with each other. And even introverts eventually, they're like, okay, we get it. Everyone hugs.
But I think that's also sort of a recurring theme of a lot of what you said, is that it's true that for people who are at that stage in their career, and especially more so now given Zoom and all these other softwares, that it's really hard. It doesn't happen naturally, organically, to end up around a body of people for an extended period of time and to go through experience. It just doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as you were speaking, it reminded me of like, you know, for younger students, for students in undergrad, it's like studying abroad. Like it's always described as a once in a lifetime thing. And part of the reason it's described that way is because when else are you going to be, you know, in this case, transplanted to another country for half a year or a year with a body of, 20 students. This actually has a lot of similarities. And it just, like, when would that happen as an adult? It's not gonna, right? Everyone's busy.
And I think also because, they're probably so committed to have chosen to be part of that program that in itself just create that special bond,
Yeah.
100%. And you're so right. In general, we are going more and more away of these opportunities when we can gather. I mean, we can order Uber Eats, we can watch things on Netflix. Like, there are so many more opportunities for us to be disconnected than be in a place with other people, that the more and more people realize that actually that's what makes us uniquely human, to be around people, to share ideas. And also what would be needed in the future to make sure that you come up with something different than everyone else. You can't just rely on the environments where everyone else is. So it is very powerful. There was like also some stats, I think 70% of all senior like executive jobs come through network. They never advertised or shared publicly. So there are so many other things like in your professional career that you have to have a network for. So if you don't invest in your network, then you kind of don't really have a real opportunity for growth. And I think in the remote working and everything else that we're going through, there is more and more of that missing out on great opportunities for learning, for connection, for moving forward. That I feel like, people try to find this somewhere else, whether it is going for, I don't know, the running clubs or dinner clubs and private members clubs, all of that, I suppose, is a substitution.
And then one of my final questions is, AI obviously has made big waves the last couple of years or so. Has that influenced the curriculum and the program, and in what manner?
It did and it didn't. And I suppose that's where it was very important for us from the beginning to create a setup that allows the curriculum to change and evolve. And there are so many other things that change, like even how we teach about the teams, and then remote working kind of happened, like flexible working. So there are so many things that change in every single subject that we teach, that it was always important for us to make sure that there is opportunity to change. But also because it is taught by the CEOs and like founders and chief design officers, they teach what they're doing. So therefore, they do share the AI tools they use, they don't use, what they struggle with, how their thinking process is right now to prepare for the future. And no one knows the answers, but we're all going through this process. And it's really good to see real people from really powerful companies, how they're problem solving this. Of course, we have separate sessions on AI, and we have some of the top scientists that work on like seriously the future of AI. We have like people who are building AI tools. They're again at the forefront that get like the biggest investment. So it's good to hear from them as well, where they see AI evolving. But at the end of the day, we want everyone who go through the program get the skills for the future. So just showing another AI tool of like, this app can do this is not going to be relevant in a month, to be honest, or maybe in a week.
I know. Yeah.
So
that program's gone.
So it's more about teaching these fundamental strategic ways of thinking about new technology, uncertainty, how to prepare for the future that you can apply. And AI is part of it, but what AI is and what it will be might change.
Our final question, which is kind of a tradition, is what is your favorite building?
Favorite building?
I have a very special relationship with Barbican in London. So again, following the theme of Bauhaus very much, it's a brutalist architecture. But what I like about their building, I'm not necessarily obsessed with brutalist architecture as a style. But what I liked is, first of all, the story. You know, there were 3 architects who bid for it to be built when it was a pitch. And they decided whoever wins, they were all top architects, they will do it together. So they had 3 times more chances to win this project because they all bid with different plans, which I think is such a great story about creativity, friendships, and collaboration.
I love that.
So they all, like one of them won and they all built it together. And also what Barbican was supposed to be and what it is, to be honest, it was this kind of built to be this epicenter of energy. So it has obviously the actual living complex where people live, but there is also a theater, a concert hall, there are galleries, there are gardens, there are fountains. There are so many different spaces you can explore. There is a bar and a restaurant. So it's like this little universe, quite kind of utopian place where, I don't know if you've seen or been there, obviously it has this brutalist architecture, but with this flourishing gardens and greenery, that contrast of something very natural and something very structured, just looks visually beautiful, but also what it represents, this place where I always imagine that you can live there and go to a concert hall in your pajamas and then, I don't know, pop into the museum or have a nice meal in the restaurant and still within your complex. So yeah, I like the idea of it. I like the story behind it, but also I love coming there because it's just such a peaceful and beautiful place.
Oh, that's awesome. It actually makes a lot of sense that you would pick this building, I think, based on our conversation. So,
I love that.
But yeah, I love it.
Ekaterina, thank you so much for making the time on what day are we?
Thursday.
Thursday. I'm so lost in the days. This was phenomenal. Of course, everyone listening, there's plenty of links and all the notes and everything like that. This was a lot of fun, eye-opening, and I think what you guys are doing is really, really, really cool.
It's awesome.
Obviously, very much needed, and thanks again.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I love sharing my passion for design. And I hope there will be more designers and creatives who will go into business and leadership and actually start changing things for the better. So please explore options of how you can move the world forward. Obviously, if anyone is interested in what we do, and specifically this incredible design leaders program that we run, there's essentially the MBA for creative industry. You can go to bauhaus.futurelondonacademy.co.uk. The URL is not chosen by random. Clearly, we love Bauhaus too much, but I'm sure there will be links in the show notes.
Yes.
But thank you so much for such a great conversation. I absolutely love your podcast, so it was a pleasure to be a guest. And thanks for all the work that you do, guys. It's amazing.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode. Again, if you want to learn more about their program, there's links in the notes everywhere. And if you want to support the show, the best way to do that is to leave a review of us in the Apple Podcast app or Spotify. You can also find us on YouTube.
Yeah, we have the hotline too that you can call or text 213-222-6950, and the website secondstudiopod.com with all the episodes are. If you have any guest suggestions, any questions, any topics you want us to talk about, feel free to reach out. And if not, well, stay tuned for the next episode.
Yeah, and then give us a follow on Instagram. The handle is Second Studio Pod, and that's also the domain website address.
Which I already gave.
Did you?
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Talk soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.